What if the person you moved across the country for didn't want you to stay? One state, one job quit, one apartment left behind, all for a relationship that ended in 32 days. No warning, no big fight. Just a quiet, I think this is too much. And suddenly, you're alone, hundreds of miles from home, with no plan and no way back. This happens more than you think, and it's not just heartbreak. It's a life reset gone wrong. If you've ever bet everything on love, keep watching. And if you haven't, hit subscribe. Because next time, it might be someone you know. It started with a text. I think we should see each other in person more often. For Mark, that was the green light. He was in Denver, working remotely, feeling stuck. She was in Austin, vibrant, full of energy, always posting sunset pics from the lake. Their long-distance thing had been going for almost a year. Late-night calls, weekend visits, texts that felt like home. So when she said, "Why don't you just move here?" He didn't hesitate. He gave notice at his job. Well, gave notice is generous. His contract ended, and he didn't renew. Packed his car, drove 1,000 miles with a duffel bag, a laptop, and a heart full of hope. And for the first 2 weeks, it was perfect. They cooked together, explored the city, took a weekend trip to the hill country. It felt like the start of something real. Then, slowly, it changed. She started canceling plans, said she was overtired, overwhelmed, just need space. Mark thought he was doing everything right, being patient, giving her room, staying positive. But one night, over takeout, she looked at him and said, "I didn't expect you to move so fast. I'm not sure I'm ready for this." A month after he arrived, she asked him to leave. No backup plan, no job in Austin. His savings were already half gone, and now he had to figure out how to restart from zero in a city where he didn't know a soul. Now, this isn't just a breakup story, it's a pattern. A 2023 Pew Research study found that nearly 1 in 5 Americans have relocated for a romantic partner. Some made it work, but many, like Mark, ended up stranded. Emotionally, financially, geographically. And here's the myth we keep swallowing. If you love someone, you should be willing to move for them. Sounds romantic, right? But what no one talks about is the imbalance. The person who stays has roots. The person who leaves loses everything. And when it ends, the one who moved doesn't just lose the relationship. They lose their job, their support system, their sense of stability. They're left asking, was I just a placeholder? A maybe? A temporary plan? Worse, a lot of people don't even talk about it. They feel stupid, like they should have known better, like they fell for something too good to be true. But it's not stupidity, it's hope. And in America, where we glorify grand romantic gestures, flying across the country, quitting your job, showing up with flowers, we rarely warn people about the fallout when it doesn't work out. We cheer the leap, but ignore the landing. Mark tried to stay. He applied to dozens of jobs, got 3 interviews. One offer, $15K less than what he made in Denver. He took it. But the rent? Double what he was used to. He moved into a shared room in a house with 5 roommates. He still sees her sometimes, at a coffee shop, on a mutual friend's Instagram. He doesn't hate her, he doesn't even blame her. She was honest, just not early enough, but he does wonder. What if I hadn't been so quick to leave everything behind? And that's the real cost, not just the money, not just the job, but the trust in your own judgment. So before we get to what Mark learned, drop a comment. Have you ever moved for someone? Did it work out? Or are you like Mark, trying to rebuild far from home? And if you're thinking about making that move, stay with me, because what comes next might change your mind. Subscribe if you haven't, because every week we're telling the stories no one talks about until they happen to you. Here's the hard truth. Moving for love isn't the problem. It's moving for love without boundaries, without a plan, and without knowing if the relationship is actually reciprocal. Because here's what no romantic movie will tell you. Love doesn't guarantee belonging. You can be with someone emotionally, physically, even financially entwined, and still be the only one treating it like a future. Mark thought he was proving his commitment, but in reality, he was placing a bet, all his chips on one hand, without checking the odds. And that's what makes this kind of heartbreak so unique. It's not just emotional, it's logistical. You don't just lose a person, you lose your job, your apartment, your friends, your city, your routine, your sense of independence. And suddenly, you're not just heartbroken, you're stranded. A 2022 study from the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships found that people who relocated for a partner were 37% more likely to experience anxiety and depression in the first 6 months after a breakup, especially if the relationship ended shortly after the move. Why? Because they don't just grieve the person. They grieve the life they thought they were building. The job they left, the dog they had to rehome, the lease they broke, the money they spent on movers, deposits, plane tickets. It adds up fast. And here's the myth we need to destroy. Real love means being willing to go anywhere for someone. No. Real love means both people want you there. Not just tolerate you, not feel pressured, not say yes out of guilt. Real love doesn't leave you wondering, am I in the way? Real love doesn't make you feel like a burden a month after you arrive. So what should Mark have done differently? Not love. Not shut down, but slow down. Because there are signs. Did she talk about the future? Or just the moment? Did she help you look for jobs, housing, networks? Or was it all on you? Did she introduce you to her friends like you were staying? Or like you were visiting? These aren't red flags, they're yellow ones. Subtle. Easy to ignore when you're in love. But together, they form a pattern. And the truth is, you can love someone deeply and still realize you're not building the same life. That doesn't make you weak. It doesn't mean you failed, it means you're human. Mark learned this the hard way. You can't move into a relationship. You have to grow into it, together, from a distance, before the big leap. Now he's back in Denver. Not because he lost, but because he chose himself. He found a new job, got his own place, started therapy, and slowly he's rebuilding trust. Not in love, not yet, but in his own judgment. Because the real victory isn't staying with someone no matter the cost. It's knowing when to walk before you lose yourself completely. And if you're thinking about making that move, ask yourself, am I moving towards someone or just away from being alone? That question could save you 1,000 miles of heartbreak. So what did Mark learn? He learned that love shouldn't cost you everything. That showing up with hope is brave, but showing up with boundaries is wiser. He learned that I love you doesn't always mean stay. And sometimes the most painful goodbyes aren't the ones to the person, but to the future you imagined. What would he change? He wouldn't stop believing in love, but he'd slow down. He'd visit first, talk more, ask harder questions. Make sure the door was open, not just for a weekend, but for a life. And is this really a failure? No, because he tried, he risked, he chose connection over safety. And that matters. Yes, he lost money. Yes, he got hurt. But he also learned who he is when everything falls apart. And that's something no one can take from him. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever moved for someone? Did it work out? Or did you end up starting over in a place that never felt like home? Drop your story in the comments, not to compare pain, but to find connection. Because sometimes just knowing you're not the only one makes it a little easier to keep going. If this hit home, hit like. It helps others find this video when they're searching for answers, or just feeling alone. And if you haven't already, subscribe, because every week we're sharing stories like this. Real people, real heartbreak, real healing. No scripts, no fake endings, just truth. Because here's the thing, life doesn't always go the way we plan. But even when love doesn't stay, you can. Keep going. You're not lost. You're just finding your way back.